So it is about -10. We are checking in on the chickens. When it gets this cold, I like to give them some warm treats. We'll make them some oatmeal or something. And then we'll also put a little honey in their water. So give them a little bit of a boost. Hi, ladies. Cracked.
Well, it's about 10 a.m. here on the homestead. Amy's making a shepherd's pie, which I'm pretty excited for. I've been cooped up here for a few days with the cold. What I think I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna load up some gear, put some warm clothes on, get on the snow machine, go out back to some of these hills way up behind the cabin here, and I'm gonna see if I can get any rabbit. We haven't been able to get any around the cabin, so I'll venture out a little further, see if I can get a few. If not, I'm hoping I can at least get some ptarmigan or spruce grouse. Okay, so I'm just about geared up now. Before I head off, I think I'm gonna go set up a little target and just make sure my 22 is grouped in pretty good, and then we'll head off. So I'm gonna go ahead and just set a target up at 25 yards, and if it looks good there, I'll move it back to 50, and then we'll call it good and head on off. At least 3 clicks up, maybe 4. Well, I got bullseye, I think. So this is our first long trip with the snowmobile, so hopefully it doesn't break down because it's pretty cold out, and I don't really feel like walking back today, but if I have to, I will. Almost. Well, I'm all geared up and I'm gonna head off and let's see what we can get. Well, I'm about 8 or so miles out behind the cabin, right up against those mountains you can see there. It's a beautiful ride out here. I saw lots of rabbit track, especially out in the flats behind here in between the cabin and the mountains. None that I can shoot. I didn't see any grouse or any ptarmigan. I saw plenty of trails, and so what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go gather up some of my snares and I'll move them out to some of those tracks that I've seen there. And yeah, it's beautiful back here. If you go a little further that way, it takes you down to the creek. If you veer right, you can get right back around, but there's a lot of downed trees down there, and I don't know if I feel like fighting my way through them. So I think I'm going to start heading back, and if I see anything on the way, hopefully I can get it. If not, no worries. It was a nice night out here.
So it was a pretty cold one last night. We got down to about -45. I'm gonna make a nice warming dinner. We're gonna do some shepherd's pie tonight, and I'm also gonna get started on a sourdough loaf. It's nice and active. It was exploding out of the jar. So I take a good half to a whole cup of this starter, and I will put this in my bowl as the first step. I'm actually gonna mix my starters. Before I start on this loaf, I'm gonna feed my starters because I just took from them. I just eyeball my feedings. Just a little bit. Generally, you're gonna see a 50-50 ratio of water and flour when you feed a starter. I sort of deviate from that where I give it a little more flour. Cap these lightly. I don't actually twist the cap on, I just kind of set it there. Then I add a good maybe 2 cups of water and mix it in really well. After the starter and the water is all mixed in together is when we were gonna do our salt. Next, you're gonna add your flour, about 4 cups. And there is no kneading, so you don't have to knead this at all. Just mix it in until a shaggy dough forms. So we are actually preparing to take a trip across the interior, a long road trip. So we are going to take this with us. It's Dennis and Lena's favorite is cinnamon raisin sourdough loaf. So that is what I'm going to make, but it's going to be a pretty long trip, about 10 hours round trip. I'm going to say that this is on the little bit of the dry side, but that's fine. And it's just going to sit like this. I put mine by the wood stove, put a towel over it. I don't get fancy with my shepherd's pie. I'm just gonna brown some beef in my skillet here using my tallow, and then I'm gonna throw in some mixed veggies and then make some mashed potatoes to go on top. Gonna boil the potatoes, whip them with a little butter, salt, pepper, and rosemary, and put them on top of the beef, and then I bake the shepherd's pie at about 350 for about 20 minutes until it gets nice and golden.
Another good bunny trail right there. I probably won't miss that one. We're getting pretty close to the cabin now. Well, I'm back. We didn't get any rabbits, but I do have some good ideas of where to set my snares. Unfortunately, I didn't see any caribou sign, which I was really hoping to see for next hunting season, but there's plenty down in the valley down there. I've seen plenty of tracks down there, so I'm gonna go inside, I'm gonna warm up, and I'm gonna have some of that shepherd's pie.
So we actually ran out of raisins, so I'm gonna make a blueberry loaf instead. This is gonna go rest for another half hour or so. Then I'm gonna do another stretch and fold, maybe 2. And then in about 3 hours, I will shape this. And then I will rest it for another hour and a half before it goes in the oven at 450, 20 minutes with the lid on, 20 minutes with it off. And I like to use a Dutch oven.
Can I see?
Pretty, yeah.
Can I see?
Come check it out, Lean.
My favorite. You make a great shepherd's pie. Thanks. Well, it's another cool night here, so I'm gonna go ahead and cook the chickens up a little oatmeal and bring them out some honey water. Give them a little pick-me-up. Brisk out here, huh?
There it is. Might not be the perfect sourdough loaf. All these blueberries really juiced up, and this is on the wet side now, so this is hard to shape, but it's gonna be good either way. Try to tighten it up as best I can. It'll work in. Now that's gonna rest for another hour to an hour and a half. When it gets to about an hour, I will turn my oven on, get it preheating with the Dutch oven in it. Back to the wood stove for you. So I am gonna dust this with flour and then score the top, and then I'm gonna pop it in the oven at 450.
Smells great.
It smells like a strudel. So this is a peaked starter, actually. Very inopportune timing as it is pretty late at night, but this is peaked now. You'll see it's really, really bubbly and super active. So. Spoon out of the honey jar.
I wanted to put the honey on
I
it.
can't.
Well, it's a little cold out today, but just to get myself outside, get a little fresh air and some sunshine, I think I'm gonna go work on some firewood. It's so cold outside, my saw won't run. I have to bring it in the house for a little bit, let it warm up. So typically for firewood in Alaska, what you'll see is a lot of folks burn spruce here. Some people will use coal. If you're real lucky, you have some birch trees. That's more common up north than down south. We have a good mix of both here. The birch is a lot better than the spruce. A lot of this spruce is what's called standing deadwood, just dead standing wood when we cut it down. So it's really dry and it kind of just goes up like cardboard. Maple or oak is substantially better than this, but you got to use what you have, and that's what we have. We didn't get any higher than -20 today.
No?
No.
All right, well, today in the homestead it is particularly cold, so we thought it was a good day to test out some candle making. We have all that tallow that we rendered down a week or so ago, so we're gonna try some tallow candles and also some traditional beeswax candles. So for the beeswax, you need a double boiler to melt that down. I'm gonna makeshift one with a sauce pot, a mason jar, and a mason jar ring. And then for the tallow, I'm just gonna throw that in a sauce pot, melt it down. Both are gonna be poured into these mason jars, and I just have some of these little wicks. I'm gonna stick those in the mason jars, pour my tallow and or my beeswax in there, and then I will have a candle. So I'm gonna get to doing that and see which one we like better. So I have to say right off the bat, the tallow is much less messy to work with. So we're gonna try the beeswax now. Okay, we are gonna have to melt some more beeswax. So I'm gonna pop this back in here. We just have one little lump left of beeswax in here, and then I'm ready to top off my last two candles. If you want to scent your candles, you can always add essential oil, but we are just going to go with plain this time to really see which one we like better. I have a feeling that that tallow is going to have a scent to it, and the beeswax is going to be a little more pleasant. But doing the math on both of these batches, it cost us about $13.90 for 5 tallow candles, jars, wicks, tallow included, and then for the beeswax about $20.13. A little more pricey, but we'll see how each burns and how long each lasts. And I do plan on reusing these mason jars for candles, so I will specifically keep these to remake candles again and again and again, so they'll get more life out of them. Just enough. So we are going to try a hybrid candle now, mixing tallow and beeswax. I love them. They're cute. We are going to do a burn test on these. We have our beeswax candle, our tallow candle, and then the mix of beeswax and tallow, and we're going to see who burns the longest. So after testing all of these candles, the beeswax, the mix of beeswax and tallow, and then just the pure tallow, after burning these for a couple hours, I think the tallow is the winner. There was no scent from it. Like, you would think that it would smell beefy and tallowy, but it did not when it burned. I think we'll have the longest burn time because it barely used any of the wax, whereas the other ones have big indents in them. It was the easiest to work with, and it was the cheapest. So I think for us, tallow candles is the way to go. We can source them from the land too, so that's really great. But yeah, tallow is definitely the winner. So I'm really gonna make a bigger batch of tallow candles of all different sizes. They just turned out really wonderful, and they're barely burning any of this tallow when we use them. So really, really cool. And absolutely opposite of what I thought. am going to do a quick round of blueberry syrup in the water bath canner and use that for some French toast with the blueberry sourdough. For high acid foods like jams and jellies, you can water bath that. So all you need is a large stock pot with a lid, and you're just going to boil water over those cans. You do need a rack in the bottom of the canner because you never want to put your jars directly on the bottom. We are going to use some berries we foraged that I found in the bottom of the freezer. I found quite a bit, so I think we might do some jam as well later. But I'm going to start with this syrup. This berry syrup is pretty easy. I'm going to start with about 4 1/4 pounds of berries combined with about a cup of water in a sauce pot and cook it down about 10 minutes, mashing it up very good. And then I'm going to strain it out, reserve that liquid. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and put 3 cups of honey in my sauce pot, combine that with about a cup and a quarter of water. Get that boiled down, 20 minutes stirring it while it goes. And then I'll pop my berry juice back in here with the lemon juice, boil it for another about 5 minutes, and then it's ready to be canned, to be ladled into our jars, leaving a 1/4 inch headspace and processed for 10 minutes in this canner. So I have this heating while I'm gonna start cooking this. So I just wanted to make a quick syrup. It's only going to make about 4 half pints. I have been cooking these down for about 10 minutes with my 1 cup of water and mashing them up. Now I'm going to strain them out through my cheesecloth and reserve all that juice. And I haven't decided what I want to make. I might make like a blueberry breakfast bread with the pulp and some sourdough discard. There. Okay, Lena, so add my 1 1/4 water.
All of it?
All of it. Good job. Then we're gonna add 3 cups of this honey.
Honey.
Honey. Here, I'll pour it out. You can pour it in.
Yay, honey. That's honey. Honey. Honey.
1 cup. Throw all that in there. That's gonna go in our syrup. The whole thing. Yep. Good job. 2.
The honey that gets the...
All right, that's 2.
Yeah.
Syrup. Might have to sterilize some more jars. All right, so these are all filled to a 1/4 inch headspace. They're ready to go in the water bath canner. Woo! See them all nice and evenly spaced. So I'm gonna get that back to a rolling boil, and then I will start timing for 10 minutes. Anything over 10 minutes or processed over 10 minutes need not be sterilized. So the jars beforehand need not be sterilized. The processing time for this is 10 minutes. Mix around. So since we have all that blueberry puree or blueberry leftover, I'm gonna whip up a blueberry sourdough discard, just bread, and see how that turns out. All this pulp that I had left over from my syrup making, I am gonna put to good use here. That looks awesome.
Yeah,
Like a streusel bread.
It's very pretty.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Hey, Lena, look at this.
But then I'm gonna top it with some oats and honey. Instead of using sugar in the streusel topping, I just put some oats and a little bit of flour to kind of thicken it. And then I'm gonna do a good bit of honey and some chai spice. Your traditional kind of streusel would have like a brown sugar in it, kind of give you a crunch. We are gonna make this sugar-free, refined sugar-free, I should say. I'm gonna bake this in the oven at 350 until all this is nice and set and golden brown.
Yeah, almost like coffee cake, but blueberry cake.
Like coffee blueberry cake.
Yeah, it's really good. You ready for yours, Lane?